Thing Q&A. Well, let's just bring him right up, all right? Please welcome first to the stage. He was one of the stuntmen on the show, Mr. Tony Cecere. Playing the part of Palmer in The Thing, David Clennon. Mr. Peter Maloney, everybody. Windows, Thomas G. Waits. And ladies and gentlemen, he was Childs, Mr. Keith David. So I know that we're going to have a lot of questions for these guys. I'm just going to kind of start off with one. Actually, it's for you, Keith.
Yes.
The ending scene in the movie where it's just you and Max sitting there and you're basically like, all right, so it's the two of us, it's down to us. Who would have taken the other one out? Like, who would have beat each other's ass in the fight for survival?
When you're that cold for that long, nobody's ass is being beat.
I had money on you in that, though. I don't know. So I think you could kick Kurt Russell's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but that's not the question. I mean, anything could happen. It would be a great fair fight if we were warm and cozy inside and all that shit, and sober. Given the circumstances, I don't think anybody's going to do shit.
Still going with you after seeing They Live. And something about Mary, I mean, you know.
Somebody would have opened a can of whoop ass.
All right, guys, so, like I said, we're going to take some questions out here from the audience. I got one right here.
This is for Keith David. So, really, who was the Thing at the end?
It's so if you think so. You know, first of all, it was 40 years ago. Second of all, as far as and fellas, correct me if I'm wrong, if the Thing took over your being, it would be unbeknownst to us consciously. They would have taken over us and become us, or imitating us to the point where no one else would know who we were until its existence was threatened. Then it would reveal itself as the alien. That's what I think. So I would know. You know, it would have absorbed me, so me in my own consciousness wouldn't really be me. It'd be somebody pretending to be me. Or something like that.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it.
I wish you had explained that to me at the time when we were shooting.
Well, Tommy will remember this when we, the only time, I've done 2 pictures with John, and the only time, the one time that I ever heard him raise his voice was a conversation that Joel Polis, Tommy, and I were having backstage. We were waiting for the scene to begin, and we had rehearsed for 2 weeks and gone through countless conversations about what the thing is, what the thing does, what it doesn't do, why it wouldn't do what. And there was one scene we had in question. Of course, that was the first scene that we were shooting. So we were backstage waiting for it to go on. When you're on a sound stage, the bell goes on. When you're about to shoot, there's a bell that goes on, a light starts to flash. The sound man, the director, and the people necessary will put on a headphone, and then the scene will begin when someone calls action, and you hear that conversation. The scene, you hear the scene. Well, we went on a bell. The light went on, and then for some reason there was a pause, a long pause, a hitch in the giddy up, I thought. So we started talking among ourselves. I don't know why we're doing this scene, because it's just going to get cut. We've been talking about this for 2 weeks, and there was nothing that we could not have said in front of the director. There was nothing we would have not said in front of him. We could have had this conversation with him, but because we were on a bell and he was hearing it through headphones as if it was a private conversation, it sounded like we were talking about him, in secret. And he came around the corner, we're doing this scene because I said we're doing this, because I like this scene. So you're going to do it, and we're going to do it now. And it was the three of us are sitting there like shit in a brick. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Anyway, I thought that was a piece of trivia.
I have a question for everybody. On the director's commentary, Kurt Russell admits to nearly blowing himself up with a stick of dynamite. What's the closest each of you came to an accident in the filming?
Well, not in the filming. After hours, there was a bar in Hyder, Alaska, where in order to be initiated into the group, you had to be Hyderized, which meant that you drank a glass of Everclear, which was 150 proof, and they lit it on fire. And we had a few of those one night, and they said to T.K. Carter, because it was a bunch of French Canadian miners in this bar. There were 3 women in the entire town, and the rest were all men. And then we came into town, and the French Canadian miners saw T.K. Carter, and they had never seen a black human being before with black skin. And they kept staring at him, and they said, "Hey man, can you walk like they do on TV?" And TK said, "No man, I'm from Beverly Hills." But we had a few drinks that night, and we came home very late, and it disturbed all the other members of the cast, including Peter Maloney and Donald Moffat and Richard Dysart and some of the more senior, and now I'm a senior, some of the more senior members, and we woke everyone up, and they were so mad at us. They were going to kill us, because you had to get up early for the shoot, and we were out carousing.
Tom, I think you're getting a phone call.
Oh, it must be my agent. Yeah, I didn't get the job. So that's the nearest I came to. I drank myself into a stupor, and I couldn't even see the next morning. Joel Polis had to walk me around until I sobered up again because I was so drunk.
Okay, I got a question for over here. This is for Keith. What was the most difficult scene with Kurt Russell? I mean, probably had a lot, but what's the most difficult scene you did with Kurt Russell?
I guess it was the blood, blood testing scene. But it's an odd question. The degree of difficulty is, I guess, relative to what's happening in the scene, with the characters, and you know, that it was what it was what you saw, you know, and that it wasn't difficult because when you're acting with someone who throws the ball back at you, there's no difficulty. I don't think. I mean, again, fellas, you know, feel free to chime in, but you know, I mean, that's what we do. We play, and when you know, the only difficulty I find in playing is when my ego starts to judge whether the other person is throwing the ball back at me the way I think it should be thrown back. And then that means I'm minding his business, which means I'm in the moment. And there were never any moments like that. So, you know, it was only the difficulty that you saw based on the situation that we were all in. And again, that was just fun to play. Does that answer your question?
This question is for Keith. First of all, you guys are all incredible, by the way. But this question is for Keith David. You were in two of my favorite movies, Princess and the Frog and The Thing. I wanted to know kind of how you prepared to play Childs, and then kind of what was the preparation it took on playing Dr. Facilier as well.
I can tell you that in it was 81, August of 81 that we began that. In June of 81, I'm a speech teacher. That's my other thing I do on the side. So in June of 81, the end of June, I began my speech teacher training. And so I got this movie script, which was very secretive. We couldn't share it with anybody. The name of the course that I teach is called Good American Speech for the Theater. So, and I had, you know, as Childs, I had lines like, you know, do you believe this voodoo motherfucker? You know. So I was deathly afraid that I would be speaking like, do you believe any of this voodoo bullshit? You know? I mean, does this motherfucker wake up after thousands of years in the house? And I thought I would get called on that, but it evened out. And as far as Dr. Facilier is concerned, I don't know this for sure, but I thought if Jeffrey Holder was a younger man, that job would have gone to him. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a wonderful actor. And so at my audition, I felt like I'm going to get this job because I sang a great song from Hans Christian Andersen that made me know I wanted to be an actor when I saw it as a child. So I know I sang a great song, but I try to do my best Jeffrey Holder, sort of, without really imitating him. He was my inspiration to play Dr. Facilier.
Hi guys, this is a question for everybody. If any of you have any Wilford Brimley stories, I'm sure we'd love to hear it.
Oh boy.
Wilford Brimley.
Diabetes guy.
Well, Wilford was very happy to be working on the Universal lot because he had been kicked off the Universal lot and told that he was never, ever to darken the doors of Universal again. So he was extremely pleased that he was on the Universal lot and earning money and in a movie. And he lived in Utah on a ranch, and I think one of the first things he said to me as I got off the plane and came to work from New York City on the East Coast of the United States. he said to me, you know, we got the death penalty in Utah. And he said, you can sign up to be the executioner. And I have signed up. And I didn't know this guy from Adam, and I didn't know if this was a warning or just a sort of, you know, sort of like a clue to his character. And so he took a fair amount of delight. There were a few of us brought from New York by John and the producers to be in the movie. So we got to California, we were given a fair amount of money per diem and given a car and a tank full of gas, and we were very happy to be employed. But Wilford took great delight in, you could never tell when he was teasing, because he didn't like laugh at the end at his own material or his own delivery. You didn't know if he was teaching or not, but he was talked to us about what a hero Senator Joe McCarthy had been during the blacklist days, and he recognized in certain of us in that group from New York City on the east coast of America, a liberal tendency which was not his tendency. But he was, you know, he was such a wonderful actor. He was one of the few actors who I've known who does not ever seem to be acting, as opposed to myself, who always seems to be acting, even when I'm not working. So one day he had an audition for a movie. So he went on lunch, out of lunch, he took a cab or drove over to this audition. And he met it was not an audition because Wilford didn't audition. And this Australian director says, we would love to hear you read. And he says, oh, I don't do that. He said, what do you mean you don't do that? He says, I don't read. Here I am, you look at my work in the past and you decide on whether you want me or not. And he said, well, I don't know if this man can play a Texan in this movie. And the director says to the producer who's sitting in the room, well, how do I know that this guy can play a Texan in the movie? And how do I know that he can direct a movie? He's from Australia. And Wilford really just would not audition for this movie, in which he was great. What was the name of it?
It was Tender Mercies.
Tender Mercies.
You slipped up the story a little bit. What happened is, because I was right there, he went in for the meeting with the director, and the director said, I'd like you to audition for the part. And Wilford said, he said, I don't do that. And he said, well, I'm not so sure you can play the part. And Wilford said, well, I'm not so sure you can direct the goddamn movie. And he got up and walked out.
Yeah, and he came back to work on our soundstage and said, Peter, I think I just blew an opportunity, me and my big mouth, and I did this, and he described the whole thing, and I thank you for clearing it up. My account is full of errors, and Tom has never been one to let those errors just go.
The way I hear it,
on those notices.
He also told me that the guy said, he said to the producer sitting next to me, well, how do I know that you can do a Texas accent? He said, how do I know you would know a Texas accent if you heard it?
This is how legends are made. Well, he got the movie, and boy, was he good in it.
Yeah.
He was good in it. And I just thought the world of him as an actor.
I was very close with Wilford. I was at his memorial last summer, and I was very close with he and his wife Beverly and his family. And he asked me to come out and direct him in Harvey, the play based on the movie, yeah. And he was brilliant, yeah, he was amazing, cantankerous and irascible, and very difficult at times, especially with the poor woman that was producing it. I mean, he was difficult, but once he got on stage, man, it was like you could see this great actor take over the stage, and he didn't care for my directing much. I'll let you know that. But he got me the job, and I did it. And he's also been sort of like a grandfather to my son, who had been going through some difficult times, and he would take the time out of his life to counsel my son and help him, and he helped him a great deal. I'll have you know, my son could call him anytime, day or night, and Wilford, the kind of man he was, is he'd pick up the phone and he'd say, "Now what can I do for you?" That's Wilford.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for doing this right here, over here. I'm a huge Sting Reunion fan. My question is what is your favorite practical effects from the movie, and is there any funny stories behind it?
Well, my favorite effect on the movie was the fire burn that I had done. For 2 weeks. 1 week down in Los Angeles where we did the interior fire burn, and then a month later we were up in Alaska where I did the exterior fire burn. But what they failed to tell everybody is when we were up there, they built the set in the summertime. So when we were up there, they didn't have it insulated. So it was cold inside the set all the time. We had to wear cold clothing inside the set. And that's where I did the exterior of the burn. And how I got the job, I was working on a little show in with Wes Craven called Swamp Thing, and Adrienne Barbeau was working on the show. Adrienne seen my fire burn. She told John about it, and John hired me to do the burn up there. So I did the burn on that particular show. But one of my favorite effects was seeing the head walk around on the floor. Yeah. And I wasn't there when they did that, so I don't know how they did it.
Speaking of the cold, they built a beautiful compound on the glacier and then waited for the snow to come. So they built it in the summer, and we were working in the studio in refrigerated sound stages. About, I don't know how cold they were.
20 degrees, I think.
How much?
I think they kept it to 20 or something like that.
It was a lot of cold air, so that they could see our breath. You know, so it would have an authenticity about the location, but it was on a soundstage in 110 degrees outside in Hollywood, you know. So when we get up to I suffer from lack of, if there's not enough warmth, I'm not a happy person. And so we got up to in the winter, up to the glacier, and we go into the compound and settle in, the way actors do, find your favorite spot. And they have the heat on, they had put heaters into it. But they didn't think about this. When the heaters were on the ice, the snow on the roof of the compound melted and it hurt the picture. The view that the audience has of that location. So we were not allowed to have those heaters on inside the compound. They gave us little bottles of propane with a thing that radiated orange and gave out heat about this far. Yeah, and so it was uncomfortable, that cold, and yeah, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Universal furnished us with wardrobe to keep us warm up there. Big fur jackets and that we had all the time we were up there.
Yeah.
They didn't want to, they knew we were going to shoot the exterior later on, and they didn't want that 4 feet of snow on the roof to all be melted off when we went outside the building. So we were not allowed to have any heat on the inside of the building.
I actually have a two-part question. The first part is, are you guys going to listen to Gary? Are you going to let him give the orders? Because he could be one of those things. That's my first question that I have.
My line.
I know, yeah. But my second question is, what is it like to talk about this movie 40 years later? Did you ever think that you would be here, that it would have the effect that it's had? I mean, I feel it's a masterpiece, and there are a lot of people here that I think feel the same way when you're making it. Did you know that it would?
David?
Bill Lancaster wrote 12 really distinct characters. That was quite a challenge, and all male, even more of a challenge, because men are so much less interesting. So you got 12 males, and he managed to make them distinct characters, I thought, with unique qualities and memorable qualities, and he introduced them one by one, and you got to know them, got to see them, and get a fix on who they were. Even Benning, who was so boring. Maybe that was his most distinctive feature. But, you came to this convention. You're here.
Yeah, why would I bother? I don't know.
You really stood out in this movie. You were memorable. So then we finished shooting the picture, or John finished shooting the picture, and went into post-production editing, and he cut a lot of those little moments that people had, that the characters had, not the actors, the characters had moments that helped to define them and help make them memorable in our minds as we watched the film. But John cut a lot of that stuff because he wanted to move rapidly to the first exposure of the monster. And I thought that was, I thought that would hurt the film a little bit, because a picture like this rests on you having feelings about a character who is suddenly in peril, and you don't want that character to be in peril, or at least you want to know who that character is that's about to be absorbed by the thing or eaten alive by the alien. And so I wasn't sure that happened, and I reckon I was wrong about that, because people love the picture, and I think that everybody pretty much, you could tell me if you ever felt when you watched the film that you didn't quite know who this guy was. I'm actually really curious to know if anybody in the community of people who love the film, who ever had that feeling the first time they watched it. What was the question?
I think most of these people out here are too young to have seen the movie when we first did it.
Oh yeah. But I do.
First time.
One of the nice things about conventions is you get feedback from people who didn't work on the film, who are taken in the film, and who are appreciating the film. That means a lot to me. It's because I feel like I'm inside the film, I can't yank myself out to look at it objectively, so it's good to be in places like HorrorHound to hear how people react.
Hey guys, my name is Jeremy. I'm a lifelong Thing fan. I'm all the way in the back if you guys are looking for me. But I'm super short, so you might not still be able to see me. So I know Mr. Cecere kept some items from the production of The Thing. You have the Palmer head, you have your crew jacket. So as such a humongous fan of this film, I love seeing the stuff that has survived. And I'm wondering if any of you kept any mementos from set, any other props or things. And if you didn't keep anything from set, if you could go back, what would be something that you would hold on to?
As Tony was saying, it was amazing to me. It was my first movie. So I was amazed, the wonder of and the craftsmanship of these people. What we had experienced as set in Los Angeles was completely recreated in this cabin up in Alaska. I mean, it was exactly the same. That picture was there, that table, I mean, everything. I mean, it was wonderful. Because it was all men up there, we had these pictures on the wall of these girls. And there was one that I was particularly fond of. That was my memento. I took that girl home with me. And for years, she hung on the inside of my bathroom door. The woman that I'm married to now, when I was dating her, she just hated it. And I kept it because it's mine, And when we got married, the first thing she said is, she got to go. So I don't have her anymore, but I wish I did.
Well, I wish, as you know, I named the character Windows, which some people may or may not have liked that choice, but we were in rehearsal one day, and I was running on Venice Beach, and I saw these really cool green sunglasses, and I put them on, and I thought I was building a history of my character, and I thought his idea was he'd go to the Antarctic, he was in the Navy or whatever, and he'd come back to Hollywood and become a big Hollywood star like Kurt Russell. So I wore these green sunglasses in the middle of the Antarctic, and in rehearsal one day, my character's name was John Simmons, and I was like, this couldn't be a more boring fucking name. And I was wearing the sunglasses and I was rehearsing, and I went to John and I said, John, I want everybody to call me Windows from now on. And he went, all right, okay everybody, from now on, Tommy wants us to call him Windows. Let's go to the next scene. And Windows was born. And I wish I had those fucking glasses!
Probably somewhere in there.
I have a question for Peter and David. Each of the characters that were revealed to be the Thing had kind of their own unique scene, the reveal scene. Did you enjoy filming that more or watching it afterwards, and why?
Peter, you were much more a part of the demise of your character. My character, there was a huge manufacturing process that took place after we finished shooting that turned my character into a monster, but you were more present on screen, I think, for the whole transformation, weren't you?
Tommy left me alone in a room. And you can put a subtitle under it. What could happen? What could happen? I'm going to leave you now while you look for whatever we were looking for, somebody's stuff. And why we were looking for it, I have no idea. But Tom said, I got to go do this, so I'll let you continue here alone in this room. And the next thing we know, when the next time I'm in a chair with half my clothes ripped off and I'm covered with those tentacles, which are writhing around my body. And I had even, you know, and actors like to think about the circumstances and make their inventions. And my invention for this situation was that I would have one of these slimy tentacles emerging from my mouth, which raises the question, if there's audience is given enough time or care, how did that tentacle get in there? I don't like to even think about it. But so he left me there, and these tentacles are covered with that goop, what I would call goop, slime, colorful as hell, and cold, very cold. And I had my shirt off, and these things are wrapped around me. You can buy a picture of me in this situation at my table. I had to run out into the cold, and it was cold. It was 103 degrees, below zero, and I had no shirt on under my jacket, and I was covered with remnants of this already cold goop, and it was very uncomfortable, and I have no idea why I brought this up.
Well, you were describing, in answer to the question, I think what your transformation towards death or towards becoming the thing felt like.
Well,
to you as an actor,
it felt pretty bad. But what really got me was that these were my really good friends standing around watching me be burned to death, incinerated by my really good friend Kurt Russell's character, McCready, and I felt abandoned and lonely, and they were going to keep working on the set, and I wasn't going to be there, but I insisted on coming every day anyway, so I could watch them work and maybe learn something.
Hi, when I was a kid, I mean, I've been watching horror movies and sci-fi movies since I was a year old. My oldest brother was too chicken to watch it by himself, so he brought his 1-year-old brother to watch it with him. The Thing is by far, and I've seen so many, it's not even funny. It was amazing. You guys did the best movie ever with what you did. You all were absolutely spot on, awesome characters, awesome actors. You guys are terrific. And some of the best one-liners ever that other people might not know about if they haven't watched the film. Okay? That you gotta be fucking kidding. Yep. It was amazing. That was spot on. And probably one of my favorite quotes of any movie was Gary. And, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch. You guys you hit everything right. You hit everything right. The characters were perfect. I don't think they could have ever made a better movie. I honestly don't. I do wish those other parts were in there. I really do. If they ever re-release another copy of it, I do wish they would put the stuff in that got cut out, if it's still around. Because I'd love to see it. Thank you guys so much. Yeah.
I just want to say, I think a lot of that credit, all of that credit really goes to John Carpenter, he had a vision, and he stuck to it. I'm sure he was under a lot of pressure from the studio to do this or do that, and he made the movie that he wanted to make, and he cast the actors that he wanted to cast, and I remember after he cast me, I called him up one night, a few weeks before I was supposed to go to LA, and I said, listen, could I play the lead? And he was very nice about it, and he's like, no. I already have somebody that I want for the part, and they're giving me a hard enough time about that, because studios, put that kind of pressure on. But he created a really great atmosphere, I thought, and cast it very well, and allowed us to create. He wasn't like what you call an actor's director. He didn't, get in there and talk to you about your motivation or anything. He just let you be, and he let us create. If something wasn't working, he'd change it. But I thought he was very generous with regard to you and your imagination. A very generous and giving director. And it's rare to find that. We created an atmosphere of just fun. It was just so much fun to go to work. You just couldn't wait. And there was this secret recipe he has of wanting to please him. He doesn't say, please me. He doesn't intimate, you're here to please me. There's nothing like that at all. He's playing video games. But when he gets down to work, he gets down to work. But he has that ineffable quality of, you just want this guy to like what you're doing. And I think that's a magical gift that few directors I've ever worked with have. And I think that's part of why the movie is so great. Other than his visual work with Dean Kundi, I think he let us really let our hair down as actors, so to speak. And we had a lot of fun, working together.
He's also, besides being very much as Tommy has described, he was also uncompromising in certain ways. And I'm in the middle of writing a book called The Deaths of George Bennings, describing the 3 deaths that my character underwent in the course of the writing and the making of this film. And the first death, I escape in a snowmobile, a thiokol, what we call a thiokol, and as I get outside the camp, the permafrost suddenly splits open and tentacles come out. And they storyboarded this whole thing, and these huge tentacles come from beneath the earth and wrap around the snowmobile and me and pull us down under the permafrost and are never seen again. So we never shot that. John and Bill talked about it at length and decided that no one of our group should be able to leave the compound and the area around it. There could be no exit. That's the thing, no exit. Or the paranoia thing wouldn't work really. So I said, well, what are we going to do then? And he said, well, we'll think of something. We're thinking about it. We're thinking about it. And so we filmed the second death. And the second death was, I was at the dog kennel, and I see the dog transforming, and I go to the button, and I press the button for the intercom, and McCready answers, and I say, Mac, you gotta get down here. These dogs are really fucked up. I mean, they're transforming. What do you mean they're transforming? I said, they're transforming into, what? I think they may be transforming into people. And he says, Bennings, do they resemble anyone we know? Which puzzled me. While I'm so excited and confused, and of course this is all fakery because we didn't have any animals ready, they weren't doing any special effects. I was pretending that I saw the dogs transforming. The door opens down at the end of the hallway. Now you may have seen the photographs of this that appeared in a book published in Britain about our movie. There's a color photograph. Through the door comes a man in our army outfits, but he's got a mask over his face, a ski mask. Comes up behind me with a barbed wire garrote. He wraps the barbed wire garrote around my neck and pulls tight, lifts my body up with one hand and takes a screwdriver this long and pushes it into my right ear all the way. Then rips open the chain link fence and hangs my body over the fence.
Oh my God.
When we shot this, took about a day to shoot. It was very painful. It was very hard to do. And then they saw the rushes, the dailies, and said, what's the problem here? Well, the problem here is, if the thing can copy any person, and so that you think it's the person that you just had coffee with, why would the thing put a ski mask over the face of the person that he just transformed into? This is not fair to the audience. This is a cheat. This is cheating. So we're not going to use that. So I said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He says, well, we'll think of something. And then what they thought of finally was what we finally shot up on the glacier with the monster taking over me and then the fire consuming me and my good friends standing around watching. So, but I'm saying about John, what I mean about John is that there was no way that he was going to settle for something that violated a vision that he had, you know. And he was right. He was right. He was, and that's where, because you can be, you know, Elia Kazan said, you know, the director is one of the hardest things for a director to do is to avoid the wanting to be a nice guy, the wanting to be loved by his actors. You will make bad art if you operate on that level. And John was a wonderful guy, a hilarious guy, funny guy, and a sweet guy. But when it came down to it, he was going to make the story as powerful and as truthful as possible. That was John Carlin.
All right, folks, we're going to have to wrap it up on that. Let's hear it one more time for the cast.